Today, Kwanrun and her husband had to return to check on their house in Achatea province. This two-story house belonged to the couple. It was quite spacious, as it was surrounded by rice fields. Beside the house, there was a rice barn, which they used as a place to store miscellaneous belongings instead. This house was quite far from neighboring homes, as there was a large amount of land surrounding it. The husband and wife lived there alone, just the two of them, and their financial situation could be considered comfortable. They had owned and stayed at this house for nearly 2 years, but most of the time, they hired an older woman they knew, whose home was not far from this place, to look after the house and clean it once a week. The couple transferred money to her every month, and there had never been any problems. The couple themselves lived in Bangkok, as they owned and ran a retail business there. However, the aunt they had hired to take care of the house had passed away due to complications from diabetes. Her relatives called to inform the couple, so they returned to attend the funeral. They arrived on the final day, the day of the cremation. After that, they came by to check on the house. At first, they planned to return to Bangkok right away. But when they saw the house, memories came rushing back. They began to miss the place, and eventually agreed to stay there for a short rest. They temporarily closed their shop, since they had been working non-stop for so long, and had never truly taken time to relax. That evening, they decided to stay overnight at the house. They talked and agreed that once they returned to Bangkok, they would start the process of selling the house. For now, however, they would use it as a temporary place to stay. That night, after the husband and wife had finished attending to their personal routines, they went to bed at around 10:30. Kwanrun could not sleep very well, so she stood by the window to get some fresh air. The wind was blowing strongly into the bedroom at that moment. As she looked straight ahead, she could see the rice barn in the distance. Lost in her thoughts, letting her mind wander, she suddenly froze. A powerful, pungent stench hit her nose, just as she inhaled deeply into her lungs. The smell was so sharp and overwhelming that her body stiffened. Tears welled up in her eyes. She quickly raised a hand to cover her nose and lifted her face to look around at the surroundings. "Oh my God, what is this? I'm going to throw up," she muttered irritably. The foul smell would not fade, and it was as if something inside her was urging her to realize one thing. This disgusting stench was coming from inside the rice barn. Kwanrun stared at the rice barn for a moment, before suddenly deciding to leave the bedroom and head straight toward the barn beside the house. The closer she walked to it, the stronger and more overwhelming the smell became. She stopped at the front of the rice barn, clamping a hand tightly over her nose, her face twisted in anger. She found herself fuming, thinking about how they had paid someone to clean the place, yet it had been done so carelessly. How could they have allowed something to crawl in and die inside the barn like this? With that thought, she decided to open the door. The moment the door swung open, Kwanrun had to turn her face away immediately. The stench intensified several times over, becoming completely unbearable. Kwanrun immediately turned around and walked away. She could no longer endure the smell, and decided that she would come back the next day instead. Still, she was curious. She wanted to know what had died inside the rice barn. She returned to the house, went to the bathroom, and cleaned herself once more before going to bed. The next morning, after Kwanrun and her husband finished their errands, they planned to go eat at the market together. Just then, Kwanrun suddenly remembered the incident and told her husband about what had happened the night before. Not long after, the two of them were standing in front of the rice barn. But now, there was not even the faintest trace of that foul stench. There was only the scent of trees and grass in the air, which made Kwanrun even more confused. What had happened the night before had been extremely clear to her. There was no way she could be mistaken. That stench had definitely come from inside this place, because she had been standing right here herself. Yet now, as she stood there with her husband, there was not even the slightest trace of any foul smell. Her husband told her she was overthinking it, or that she must have dreamed it or sleepwalked. He even said that she was too stressed. With that, he took her hand and pulled her away from the rice barn, leading her toward the market to find something to eat. Even though he had not gone inside the rice barn at all, Kwanrun insisted. She wanted to see what was inside for herself. The night before, she had tried to go in, but the smell had been too unbearable, so she had backed away and never made it inside. That was why she brought her husband with her today. She was determined to find out for sure whether there was something in there or not. At least now, she was not alone. But her husband refused to go in. He said it was pointless and ridiculous, and that the place was dirty. He told her he did not like it at all, because a rice barn was full of who knows what kinds of things. He brushed it off with those excuses. And so, that day, they never went inside the rice barn. After the two of them finished eating at the market, they did not return home right away. Instead, they stopped by to visit his grandmother, whom they had not seen for over a year. By the time they finally returned to the house, it was already evening. While Kwanrun was sweeping the floor, and her husband was in the bathroom taking a shower, a loud noise suddenly echoed throughout the entire house. The sound was booming and intense, filling the space, and then it abruptly stopped. Kwanrun was startled. The noise had been disturbingly loud and hollow. She shouted toward the bathroom, asking her husband if he had heard it, saying she did not know what that sound was. But her husband replied calmly that he had not heard anything at all. Kwanrun grew irritated. She muttered under her breath, complaining that her husband must be crazy. How could he not hear it? The sound had been loud enough to shake the entire house. Was he deaf or something? She walked around, searching for the source of the noise. Then she suddenly jolted in shock once again. A rapid, violent pounding erupted, like someone was smashing against a door with full force. Startled, she snapped her head toward the sound immediately. When she turned, there was nothing there, except the door of the rice barn. And just like that, the noise stopped instantly, as if it had ceased the exact moment she looked at it. Her instincts told her one thing very clearly. That sound had come from inside the rice barn. But now, everything was silent. She slowly walked closer and closer to the door of the rice barn. A faint, rancid odor began to drift toward her nose. The nearer she got, the stronger the stench became, until she had to raise her hand to cover her nose. This shocked her deeply. Earlier that morning, when she had brought her husband here, there had not been even the slightest smell at all. But now, the foul odor was creeping back once again. She made up her mind and pulled the door open, separating it slightly from the frame, then leaned in to peer inside. The interior was dim and unclear. Dusk had already begun to fall, so she could only see what was close to her. Deeper inside, there was nothing she could make out at all. She decided to turn on the light inside the rice barn. Without stepping in, she reached her hand along the inner wall, feeling around for the light switch. Her body remained crouched at the threshold, half inside, half outside, and while she was groping for the switch, she was suddenly struck by intense fear. She screamed at the top of her lungs, jerking her hand back instantly, and stumbling backward out of the rice barn, her heart pounding wildly. She retreated so fast that she collided with her husband, who had come out to look for her. After hearing her scream, when she bumped into him, she screamed even louder in fright. But once she realized it was her husband, she immediately threw herself into his arms. Clutching him tightly, she pointed back toward the rice barn and told him that someone had touched her hand. There had been a hand, a cold hand, gently stroking her hand. Her husband walked over to check, wanting to ease his wife's mind, though he himself was clearly irritated as well. He believed she was simply overthinking things. He stepped inside, searched for the light switch, and when he found it, he turned it on. The light flicked on, illuminating the inside of the rice barn. Then he walked back and pulled Kwanrun closer, urging her to come in and take a look for herself. He wanted her to see that there was nothing there, so she would finally stop worrying. Kwanrun hesitated for a moment, reluctant to go inside, but in the end, she was pulled in anyway. Once inside, her husband pointed toward the light switch. Nearby, there were torn pieces of straw rope hanging loosely. He told her that her hand must have brushed against the rope, which was why she had panicked and imagined things. He continued pointing around the interior, trying to show her everything inside. He kept telling her that there was nothing there, nothing at all like what she had imagined. After being reassured again and again, she finally began to believe him, thinking that perhaps she really had overreacted. She completely forgot about the strange, conflicting smell. The two of them walked around inside the rice barn together. There were all kinds of random items scattered everywhere, cluttered, damp, and coated with thick layers of dust. Along one side of the wall, there was a large pile of straw, mixed messily with a big mound of salt, all jumbled together in a soggy, chaotic heap. As they moved closer to inspect the straw and salt piles, her husband suddenly pulled her back. He told her the place was filthy. He had already taken a shower and did not want to stay inside any longer. It was hot, stuffy, and suffocating. And it truly was. She did not like it either. So the two of them walked back out and prepared to close the door. But at the very moment when her husband was about to shut it completely, her eyes glanced through the narrow gap where the door had not yet closed. Inside, standing among the tangled piles of straw and salt, she saw a woman with a shriveled body, dry and withered, like a corpse left to rot. She was standing there, motionless, inside the rice barn. She screamed and stumbled backward, falling hard onto the ground. The shock was so overwhelming that she lost consciousness right there. Her husband panicked. He released his grip on the door, which had not yet been fully shut, and turned to lift Kwanrun into his arms. As he carried her back toward the house, he suddenly flinched. A loud bang exploded behind him. He turned around and saw the rice barn door slam completely shut, closing with a violent crash, as if someone had forcefully shoved it from the inside. But he brushed it off, thinking it must have been the door swinging shut on its own. He did not notice, or perhaps did not allow himself to notice, that there was no wind at all. Not even a single leaf was moving. His mind was consumed with worry for his wife, and in that moment, he paid no attention to anything else around him. Nearly 2 hours later, Kwanrun finally regained consciousness when she opened her eyes and saw her husband sitting beside her. She immediately lunged forward, clinging to him. She burst into tears, telling him over and over again that she had seen a woman inside the rice barn. She had truly seen her. That woman had been terrifying. Her body was dried and shriveled, so gaunt that the shape of her bones was clearly visible beneath her skin. She said the woman was wearing something like a nightgown, ragged and filthy, and she kept repeating this through her sobs. Her husband then recalled the moment when the rice barn door had slammed shut right before his eyes. Even though there had been no wind at all, a sense of unease crept into his chest. Still, he could not bring himself to fully believe that something supernatural was happening. After all, this was his own house. He had lived here before, and nothing like this had ever occurred. Or perhaps, while the two of them had been away, someone had come and done something terrible here. Her husband's thoughts spiraled through every possible explanation. The more he thought about it, the more uneasy he became. Between the strange stench his wife had smelled, her claim of seeing something inside the rice barn, and the door that had slammed shut on him, his doubts began to grow. As for Kwanrun, her heart was already shaken to the core, consumed by fear over what she had seen with her own eyes. As his thoughts continued to spiral, a rancid stench suddenly drifted into the air. The moment Kwanrun caught the smell, she flinched violently, clutched her husband tightly, and broke down in tears. Her husband was startled as well. At that point, he began to believe her. Part of him wanted to go and see for himself, to find out the truth once and for all. But Kwanrun refused to let him go anywhere. And so, the two of them remained inside the room together, enduring the foul odor, as it came and went in waves. After some time passed, the sound of the rice barn door opening and closing echoed through the air. It slammed loudly for a while, then faded away again after that. Nothing else happened. The two of them endured the night inside the bedroom, waiting for morning to arrive. Her husband decided that once dawn came, he would ask their relatives who lived nearby to help open up the rice barn and see what had really happened. That night, after he finally fell asleep, Kwanrun's husband dreamed of a woman. She was beautiful, wearing a white nightgown, standing in front of the rice barn and crying. And in his dream, she looked at him and said only one word: "Help me." Then she suddenly vanished, disappearing back into the rice barn. When morning came, the two of them woke up and looked at each other. Kwanrun was still terrified, but her husband tried to comfort her. He told her that they had not harmed anyone. Whoever that woman was, she might simply be asking for help. She probably had not come to scare or haunt them. "We have to help her," he said, trying to ease his wife's fear. Even so, both of them were still frightened. Early that morning, they went to visit their relatives and told them everything that had happened. Fortunately, their relatives believed them. One of the relatives then told them something important. The second aunt, whom the couple had hired to help clean the house, had mentioned something strange. She had spoken about it around 5 months before she passed away. She said that whenever she went there to clean the house, she often smelled a foul, rancid odor. The rice barn door would also open and slam shut loudly on its own, which startled her every time. Still, she never thought much of it. She assumed it was probably the remains of some dead animal. She also said that she never went inside the rice barn to clean it, not even once, because there was so much dust, and she suffered from allergies. She avoided the place entirely. It was only after Kwanrun and her husband came to tell their story that everything began to connect. After the discussion ended, they gathered nearly 20 people to come and open up the rice barn beside the house to see whether anything had been hidden inside. Everyone came with the intention of tearing open the rice barn and finding out the truth. Among them was Kwanrun's husband as well. As they approached the rice barn, when they were still about 10 meters away, a violent gust of wind suddenly blasted through the area. Everyone was forced to stop. They raised their hands to shield their faces and eyes. As dust swirled thickly through the air, the wind came in one fierce surge, then stopped completely, as if something had sensed their arrival. When they moved closer again, everyone groaned at the same time and quickly covered their noses. A powerful rotten stench poured out, so strong that everyone stopped and looked at one another in shock. Then the eldest and most senior relative spoke up. He said they should take that person out, help her, and allow her to leave properly so she would no longer have to suffer like this. With that, everyone made up their minds. They braced themselves, opened the door, and tore it off right then and there. The stench did not fade. Some people had to step outside to catch their breath before going back in again. They took turns, going in and out repeatedly, just to be able to breathe. As they continued their search, they slowly worked together, clearing away the clutter scattered throughout the barn, and carrying the items outside piece by piece. Eventually, only the piles of straw and salt remained. Everyone hurried to shovel the salt and move the straw aside, wanting to finish before nightfall. They struggled with the piles of salt and straw for hours, and then, everyone froze in shock. As they dug into the mound of salt, they uncovered something. What they saw was a hand, a darkened, blackened hand. But the body was dried down to the bone. A twisted, claw-like hand emerged, grotesque and spine-chilling. Everyone braced themselves and continued digging slowly until nearly the entire body was revealed. And then, they had to stop. What made everyone pause, needing time to prepare their hearts, was the woman's head. Her flesh had shriveled tight against her skull, the bone structure clearly exposed. Her mouth was stretched wide open, as if, in her final moments, she had screamed in unimaginable agony. Her eyes had sunk deep into hollow, dark pits. The dried skin on her face was cracked and lined, with darkened veins visible beneath, bruised and festering, a horrifying sight beyond words. Her body lay curled inward, and one arm was raised upward, as if she had tried desperately to pull herself out of the mound of salt. But she never could. Both hands were stiff, the fingers tightly curled in rigid claws. Everyone stood in silence for a while, gathering their resolve. Then, together, they carefully lifted her body out of the salt pile and dismantled the surrounding structure that had once formed the rice barn. There was no rice barn left anymore. The corpse, once hidden in the fields, now lay curled on a wooden stretcher placed beneath her body. And strangely, the moment the rice barn was gone, the foul stench vanished completely. Even though the corpse was still lying there, right beside everyone, there was no smell at all. The elder relatives then contacted the police, who came to handle the body and investigate who the woman was. where she had come from, and how she had ended up dying inside the rice barn at that house. After the police had finished everything, the husband and wife asked to return to Bangkok. They left the house behind and gave it to their relatives. However, the relatives never moved into that house. It eventually became abandoned. The couple never contacted anyone about it again. They did not want to know anything more about what had happened. These days, it is only the relatives who occasionally visit them in Bangkok. No one ever speaks about that woman anymore, because Kwanrun had made it clear, since she would never live there again, she did not want to know anything further. She was deeply afraid of such things, and so, that story slowly faded away from her family at last.
BikiBaam. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, so you won't miss any of our new creative clips. Support our art journey with a super thanks. See you again in the next clip. Coming soon.